Hello, dear wanderer of the night, and welcome to GeoSnoozeFacts, where the world's most intriguing mysteries become your companions as you drift towards sleep. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this evening with us. Before we begin our journey tonight, if you find comfort in these stories, please give this video a gentle like. And down in the comments, let us know, did tonight's tale help you find peace? Or perhaps there's another corner of our mysterious world you'd like us to explore in a future bedtime story. We read every comment, and your voice helps shape the dreams we weave together. Now, settle yourself deeper into your pillows. Let your breathing slow. Tonight, we're traveling to the bottom of the world, to a place where ice speaks in whispers, where darkness holds secrets millions of years old, and where the very definition of impossible begins to blur. Antarctica, the white continent, the frozen crown of our planet. But beneath that pristine surface lies something far stranger than you might imagine. Hidden worlds, ancient mysteries, questions that scientists still struggle to answer. As you close your eyes, I want you to picture yourself standing on an endless plain of ice, the cold air sharp and clean, the silence so profound you can hear your own heartbeat, and beneath your feet, for kilometers down, something is waiting. Let us descend together into the mysteries of Antarctica. Imagine, if you will, a map of Antarctica, not the one you'd see in a textbook, with its familiar outline and research stations marked in red dots. No, imagine a map of what lies beneath the ice. A secret geography known only through the patient pinging of radar waves, bouncing through ancient frozen water, returning with whispers of what hides below. Fact 1. Deep under Antarctica's miles-thick ice sheet, radar has revealed more than 400 hidden lakes. For hundreds separate worlds of liquid water, never touched by sunlight, forming an intricate network. A secret plumbing system that fills and drains like the veins of some vast, sleeping creature. Let that settle into your mind as you breathe slowly. For 100 lakes, in a place where everything should be frozen solid. They exist in absolute darkness, warmed just enough by the Earth's deep heat to remain liquid, flowing through channels we cannot see, following routes we can only guess at. Fact 2. One of these buried lakes, Lake Vostok, is roughly the size of Lake Ontario. But unlike Ontario, which you could sail across on a summer afternoon, Lake Vostok lies imprisoned under approximately 4 kilometers of ice. For 1,000 meters, nearly 2.5 miles of frozen weight pressing down on water that has been isolated from our world for millions of years. What could possibly live in such a place? What ecosystems might have evolved in that eternal night, feeding on minerals and chemicals instead of sunlight, adapting to pressures that would crush most life we know? Scientists ask themselves these questions, and some cannot sleep for wondering about the answers. Fact 3. These subglacial lakes don't simply sit still. They pulse with hidden life, geological life, if not biological. Sometimes, one lake will suddenly drain, its water rushing through unseen tunnels into downstream basins. When this happens, the ice surface above can drop by several meters, settling like a giant's footprint in the snow. Somewhere below, in absolute darkness, floods are occurring, millions of gallons of water pouring through black corridors we will never see, carrying with them who knows what ancient sediments, what microscopic passengers, what secrets. Can you picture it? The silence on the surface, broken only by wind, and below, a rushing torrent in the dark, powerful and utterly alone. Fact 4. Some scientists look at these subglacial lakes and see something else entirely. They see Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. They see analogs for alien worlds, places where life might hide beneath ice in the outer solar system. But other scientists push back, arguing that the differences are too great, that Antarctica's lakes are warmed by Earth's geothermal heat while Europa's ocean lies beneath ice dozens of kilometers thick, chilled by the void of space. The debate continues, simmering like the water beneath the ice. How alien are these lakes? Really? And what might they teach us about life beyond Earth? Fact 5. This has led to one of the most profound ethical questions in modern science. Should we drill down into these lakes? Send probes into Lake Vostok and the others? Some researchers call it a first contact scenario. Except instead of reaching out to the stars, we'd be reaching down into our own planet's hidden biospheres. And what if we contaminate them? What if our drilling equipment carries microbes into water that has been pristine for millions of years, destroying unique ecosystems before we even understand them? The debate is fierce. Curiosity versus preservation. The desire to know versus the need to protect. And so the lakes continue their secret existence, breathing their dark breaths, rising and falling with rhythms only they understand, waiting beneath the ice. Let that image rest in your mind as we move onward, deeper into Antarctica's mysteries. In West Antarctica, there is a glacier with a name that sounds like it came from an apocalyptic film. They call it the Doomsday Glacier. And unlike many dramatic names given to geographical features, this one might actually deserve its title. Fact 6. Thwaites Glacier. Say the name slowly, let it roll off your tongue. Thwaites Glacier is nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier because if it were to collapse, if its ice were to slide into the ocean and melt, global sea levels could rise by approximately half a meter to a full meter. That might not sound like much as you lie there in your bed. But imagine, coastlines around the world would be redrawn. Cities would flood. Islands would vanish. The geography of human civilization would change. Half a meter, 100 centimeters, the height of a small child. And that's all it would take to transform our world. Fact 7. What makes scientists lose sleep is this. Thwaites appears to have doubled its rate of ice loss in recent decades. The glacier is accelerating, like a car rolling down a hill that grows steeper with every passing year. But here's where it gets controversial. Glaciologists cannot agree on whether Thwaites has already crossed the point of no return. Some look at the data and see a glacier in irreversible collapse, a system that has passed its tipping point and will now slide inexorably into the sea. Others examine the same measurements and argue that feedbacks and the specific geometry of the bedrock might slow or even halt the retreat. The same glacier, the same data, different conclusions. Science, after all, is not always as certain as we'd like it to be. Fact 8. The mechanics of Thwaites' potential collapse are fascinatingly terrifying. The glacier rests on bedrock beneath the ocean, what's called a grounding line. As long as it stays attached to underwater pinning points, high spots on the seafloor, it remains relatively stable. But warm ocean water is eating away at these connection points. Some models predict that once the grounding line retreats past a certain threshold, the glacier will enter a phase of runaway retreat, pulling back faster and faster like a zipper being undone. Other models suggest the bedrock's shape might create natural speed bumps, slowing the process. We simply don't know for certain. We're watching one of the planet's great systems teeter on the edge of transformation, and we can't predict exactly when or if it will fall. Fact 9. The uncertainty has spawned some radical ideas. If Thwaites is truly doomed, why not intervene? Some engineers have proposed building massive underwater walls or artificial islands in front of the glacier to block warm ocean currents from reaching it. Picture that. A wall beneath the waves, kilometers long, built at costs measured in trillions of dollars, all to save one glacier. Critics call these proposals unrealistic, technically impossible, or even ethically unacceptable, playing God with Earth's natural systems on an unprecedented scale. But as the ice continues to thin, such desperate solutions move from science fiction towards serious policy debate. Fact 10. And here's the question that keeps economists, politicians, and scientists arguing late into the night. Should we pour trillions of dollars into defending Thwaites Glacier? Or should we redirect that massive investment into cutting greenhouse gas emissions at their source? It's a choice between treating the symptom or addressing the cause, between a dramatic engineering solution to one problem or a comprehensive societal transformation to solve many. There is no easy answer, and the clock, as they say, is ticking. Thwaites continues to slide, grain by grain, toward the sea. Whether we will stop it, slow it, or simply witness it remains one of the great uncertainties of our time. Breathe deeply. Let the weight of these questions settle, and then release them. We move on. Music becomes slightly more mysterious, with ethereal tones. Now we turn from the scientifically terrifying to the beautifully strange. Antarctica, you see, has pyramids. Or does it? Fact 11. Several years ago, satellite images began circulating online, sharp, four-sided peaks rising from the ice in the Ellsworth Mountains. They looked remarkably like pyramids, perfect pyramids, and the internet, as it tends to do, caught fire with speculation. Ancient builders? Lost civilizations? Some even suggested alien engineers constructing monuments beneath what was once millions of years ago, a warmer land. The images were real. The peaks exist. The question was, what made them? Fact 12. Geologists looked at these formations and saw something entirely different from what the conspiracy theorists saw. They recognized classic pyramidal peaks, mountains carved by converging glaciers flowing from multiple directions, wearing away the rock into sharp, symmetrical forms. It's the same process that created the Matterhorn in the Alps, one of the most famous mountains on Earth. Natural geomorphic processes, they explained patiently, operating over millions of years. Wind, ice, erosion, the patient sculpture of geological time. But explanations like millions of years of erosion don't capture the imagination quite like ancient alien pyramids. Do they? Fact 13. The conspiracy communities weren't convinced. They pointed to the symmetry, too perfect, they said, to be natural. They emphasized Antarctica's remoteness. Who knows what's really there? And when scientists provided wider satellite views showing these pyramids were clearly part of a larger, obviously natural mountain range, the response was predictable. Selective screenshots, they said. You're hiding the truth. Show us the whole picture and we'll show you where you're wrong. It's a fascinating standoff. Both sides looking at the same evidence and seeing completely different realities. Fact 14. What's perhaps most interesting is how the story perpetuated. Tourism sites and media outlets discovered that Antarctic pyramids made excellent clickbait. Articles would tease the mystery. You won't believe what satellites found in Antarctica, while often burying the geological explanation deep in the text. The boundary between education and entertainment blurred. Some writers knew exactly what they were doing, feeding curiosity while winking at the truth. Others seemed genuinely uncertain what to believe. Fact 15. The pyramid controversy has become something of a case study in modern information dynamics. Satellite imagery, stripped of context, just a dramatic screenshot of a peak rising from ice, can feed powerful narratives. These narratives spread faster and farther than slow, technical geological explanations. They tap into something deep in the human psyche. The desire for mystery, for hidden truth, for the possibility that our world holds secrets that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. And so the pyramids persist in the collective imagination, even as geologists shake their heads and return to their measurements. The mountains themselves don't care what we call them. They stand where ice and wind have placed them, indifferent to our debates, sharp against the Antarctic sky. Let's leave them there, mysterious and beautiful, and continue our journey. Some mysteries in Antarctica aren't about what's there now, but about what might have been there decades ago. And few stories have captured imaginations quite like the tale of Nazi Germany's Antarctic ambitions. Fact 16. The story goes like this. During World War II, or perhaps just before it, Nazi Germany established a secret base in a region they called New Swabia in Queen Maud Land. This base, according to legend, served as a refuge, a research hub, perhaps even a launching point for secret weapons projects. As the war turned against Germany, some versions of the story suggest, high-ranking Nazis fled to this Antarctic fortress, continuing their work far from the eyes of the victorious Allies. It's a compelling narrative. Remote location, secret base, Nazis, the ingredients for a great thriller. Fact 17. Historians, however, tell a different story. Yes, Germany did send an expedition to Antarctica in 1938 to 39. They photographed territory from the air, dropped markers claiming the land, and conducted surveys. But historical records show no evidence of permanent structures, no large-scale cargo deliveries, no construction of the underground fortresses that feature in the legends. The expedition was real. The secret base, as far as evidence shows, was not. But the absence of evidence, to some, is not evidence of absence. Fact 18. Then came Operation Highjump. In 1946 to 47, the United States Navy launched a massive mission to Antarctica, involving thousands of personnel and multiple ships. It was officially a training exercise and mapping mission, teaching American forces how to operate in polar conditions, gathering geographical data for future reference. But online, Operation Highjump has been reimagined as something entirely different, an assault on the Nazi Antarctic base. Some versions of the story describe mysterious losses, unexplained damage to ships, even attacks by flying saucers emerging from the ice. Fact 19. When historians examine the actual records, ship logs, personnel accounts, mission reports, they find a large-scale but ultimately mundane operation. Training exercises, ice navigation practice, photographic surveys. Nothing about secret battles or hidden bases. But to believers, this is exactly what you'd expect from a cover-up. Any mundane explanation, they argue, is too convenient. The truth, they insist, lies in what the documents don't say. Fact 20. What's remarkable is how the Nazi base story has evolved. It no longer stands alone. It's become intertwined with Hollow Earth theories, with UFO lore, with legends of advanced technology and secret societies. The story has grown layers like ice accumulating on a glacier, each new telling adding details, connections, interpretations. Historians see it as entirely baseless, a myth built on coincidence and imagination. Yet its endurance speaks to something profound. Antarctica's isolation makes it a perfect canvas for our wildest historical rewrites. If something impossible happened, where else could it have happened but there? At the bottom of the world, where ice erases evidence and silence guards secrets. The story persists, neither proven nor disprovable to those who want to believe it, a ghost haunting Antarctica's past. breathe, release these tales of old wars and hidden bases. We drift onward. From Nazi secrets, we travel even further back in time, perhaps impossibly far back, to legends of lost civilizations and maps that shouldn't exist. Fact 21. There are those who look at Antarctica's ice and see a tomb. Not the tomb of a glacier or a frozen ecosystem, but the tomb of a civilization. They argue that beneath the ice lies Atlantis, or a sister city to Atlantis, or some other advanced ancient culture that thrived when Antarctica was green and temperate, before geological catastrophe buried it in ice. How do they support this claim? With maps. Fact 22. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513, shows what appears to be a southern continent. Other ancient and medieval maps show similar features. To some researchers, these maps are proof that ancient mariners explored and charted Antarctica thousands of years before the official modern discovery. How else, they ask, could cartographers have known the continent was there? Mainstream cartographers have an answer. The coastlines on these maps, when examined carefully, match South America's eastern shore far better than they match Antarctica. The maps likely show early, imperfect knowledge of South American geography, not secret knowledge of a distant frozen continent. But the debate continues, each side interpreting the same aged parchment differently. Fact 23. Then there's Agartha, a legendary underground realm supposedly accessible through openings at the poles. In various traditions, Agartha is described as a vast network of tunnels and caverns, home to an advanced civilization that has withdrawn from the surface world. Antarctica, in these stories, is not merely land covered with ice. It's a doorway to inner Earth, a threshold to realms that dwarf our surface geography. Geophysicists, examining the planet's interior through seismic waves, find no support for hollow spaces large enough to house civilizations. But to believers, this simply means the truth is hidden deeper than our instruments can reach. Fact 24. Satellite imagery occasionally reveals anomalies in regions like Wilkes Land, circular formations, density variations in the rock beneath the ice. Some interpreters see buried cities in these patterns. Others suggest crashed spacecraft, ancient starships entombed in ice. Meanwhile, geophysicists examine the same data and identify likely impact structures or unusually dense rock formations in Earth's crust. Interesting but entirely natural. Same data, wildly different conclusions. Fact 25. What makes the Atlantis under the ice narrative so resilient is a particular dynamic. The fact that mainstream science dismisses these ideas becomes, for some audiences, part of the story itself. Skepticism transforms from evidence-based reasoning into suspicious behavior. Of course they deny it. The thinking goes, they don't want us to know. In this way, skepticism itself becomes a character in the ongoing debate. Not a voice of reason, but an antagonist guarding secrets. And so the legends persist. Atlantis beneath the ice, Agartha in the depths, ancient maps that whisper of knowledge older than history. The ice keeps whatever secrets it holds, indifferent to our speculation, patient beyond measure. We leave these ancient mysteries and move to something more viscerally strange. In one of the driest, coldest, most desolate regions of Antarctica, a place where nothing should flow, where water should be locked forever in frozen stillness, there is a waterfall, and it bleeds. Fact 26. Blood falls spills from the face of Taylor Glacier into Lake Bonny, a stream of crimson against pristine white ice. The first explorers who saw it thought it looked like something from a horror film. Vivid red, staining the snow, flowing like a wound in the glacier itself. It seems impossible, yet there it is, photographed countless times, undeniably real. What could cause such a thing? Fact 27. The answer lies hidden beneath the ice. Deep under Taylor Glacier flows a buried lake of incredibly salty brine, rich with dissolved iron. This ancient water, cut off from the atmosphere for potentially millions of years, occasionally finds pathways to the surface. When it emerges and meets oxygen for the first time in epochs, the iron oxidizes, it rusts. The water doesn't just carry rust. It becomes rust, transforming into the deep red color that gives Blood Falls its name. The glacier is bleeding iron. Fact 28. But Blood Falls isn't just a geological curiosity. It's a laboratory for extreme life. Scientists have discovered microbes living in the brine beneath Taylor Glacier, organisms that survive without sunlight in sub-zero temperatures, in water so salty it would kill most life we know. These microbes don't breathe oxygen. They use sulfates in their metabolism, extracting energy from chemical reactions most organisms couldn't exploit. Life, it seems, is far more resourceful than we once believed. Fact 29. Of course, the strangeness of Blood Falls has attracted its share of alternative explanations. Some claim it's evidence of secret mining operations beneath the ice, industrial pollution leaking from hidden bases. Others suggest it's the planet itself bleeding, wounded by human activity or cosmic forces. But every chemical analysis comes back the same: iron-rich groundwater naturally oxidizing. Beautiful, strange, but entirely explainable. The question isn't really what causes Blood Falls. The question is what the phenomenon teaches us. Fact 30. Because Blood Falls raises profound questions about life's persistence. If microbes can thrive in that buried, salty, lightless brine for millions of years, what other environments might harbor life? The discovery forces astrobiologists to expand their definitions of habitable. And when we look at Mars with its rust-red surface, or at the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn where underground oceans might exist, we can't help but wonder, could similar processes be happening there? Could red stains on distant worlds be signs not just of chemistry, but of biology? Blood Falls doesn't answer these questions. It simply makes them impossible to ignore. The crimson water continues its slow flow, staining the ice, carrying its cargo of iron and microbes and mysteries out into the pale Antarctic sunlight. Breathe deeply. Picture that ribbon of red against endless white. And let's move onward. Look up at the Antarctic sky. Not during the bright summer when the sun circles endlessly, but during the dark winter, when auroras dance and stars will overhead in their ancient patterns. Sometimes observers report seeing other things. Lights that shouldn't be there. Objects that move in ways they shouldn't move. Welcome to Antarctica's UFO phenomenon. Fact 31. Personnel at Antarctic research stations have reported strange lights and fast-moving objects in the sky. Sightings that feed an entire subgenre of UFO literature. The reports are real. People genuinely see unusual phenomena. But what are they seeing? Scientists point to satellites crossing the polar skies, to rare atmospheric optical effects caused by ice crystals and unusual light conditions, to aircraft appearing strange under the unique visual distortions of polar twilight. In Antarctica, the atmosphere itself can play tricks. Yet the reports continue, and with them, the speculation. Fact 32. One of the most persistent myths surrounding Antarctica is that airplanes are forbidden from flying over it, that there's a no-fly zone covering the entire continent, allegedly designed to hide secret installations or mysterious discoveries. This claim circulates widely online, presented as hard fact. But aviation authorities and pilots regularly explain, International flight rules over Antarctica mainly reflect safety concerns. The continent has severe weather, limited emergency landing options, and vast areas without rescue infrastructure. Flights do cross polar regions where practical, but the difficulty of emergency response in the deep south makes routine overflights less attractive than routes over populated areas. It's not a conspiracy, it's logistics. Fact 33. But for UFO enthusiasts, Antarctica's strangeness goes deeper. Some narratives merge the Nazi-based stories with UFO lore, suggesting that the Third Reich developed flying disc technology in their hidden Antarctic hangars. These advanced craft, the stories claim, still launch from underground facilities, their lights seen occasionally by surprised researchers. Despite complete absence of physical evidence or credible documentation, these tales persist, layered onto older legends like ice accumulating on ice. Fact 34. The reality is more nuanced and, in its way, just as interesting. Polar routes are indeed used where practical. Pilots do fly over Antarctic regions when routing between southern continents makes sense. But the extreme conditions, temperatures that can crack fuel lines, winds that can flip aircraft, distances that strain fuel reserves, make these routes challenging. It's not that flight is forbidden. It's that flying over Antarctica requires exceptional preparation and involves risks that commercial airlines typically avoid. But this measured explanation doesn't carry the dramatic weight of planes are banned from Antarctic skies. Fact 35. What keeps these UFO and no-fly myths alive is the unique character of Antarctic geography. The continent has heavily instrumented research stations where every supply delivery is logged, where scientists work under international scrutiny. But it also has vast, unmonitored areas, thousands of square kilometers of ice where nothing human exists for hundreds of miles. This contrast lets enthusiasts argue that anything beyond the radar might be happening. Alien docking, secret tests, hidden cities. The very emptiness of Antarctica becomes evidence for its fullness with secrets. The lights continue to appear in Antarctic skies. Most are satellites. Some are atmospheric phenomena. All are filtered through the human tendency to see meaning in mystery. And we move on from sky to ground, from aliens to politics. Antarctica may seem remote from human affairs, a frozen waste beyond politics and power struggles. But where there's land, there's claim. Where there's claim, there's conflict. And Antarctica has both, carefully balanced under a treaty that some call humanity's greatest diplomatic achievement, while others see it as a convenient cover for hidden agendas. Fact 36. The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959, stands as one of the most successful international agreements in history. It bans military bases on the continent, prohibits weapons testing and nuclear explosions. It dedicates Antarctica to peaceful scientific research. 12 nations originally signed it. Now dozens participate. It's a triumph of cooperation over competition. But critics ask, what counts as a scientific station? Could research facilities double as strategic listening posts? Could seismic monitoring equipment meant for earthquake detection also track submarine movements? The treaty bans military bases, but it doesn't ban dual-use facilities. Fact 37. Here's another complexity. The treaty doesn't resolve territorial claims. It freezes them. 7 nations claim sectors of Antarctica, overlapping pie slices of sovereignty stretching from the coast to the South Pole. Britain, Argentina, and Chile all claim the Antarctic Peninsula, their sectors overlapping in a 3-way dispute. The treaty essentially says, we won't fight about this now. We'll pursue our claims peacefully through scientific presence. So nations maintain bases in their claimed territories, flying their flags, stamping their presence into the ice. Some see this as peaceful coexistence. Others see it as a frozen conflict waiting to thaw. Fact 38. The question of resources haunts Antarctic geopolitics. The continent likely holds minerals, possibly hydrocarbons, certainly freshwater in quantities that dwarf most nations' reserves. The treaty's protocol on environmental protection prohibits mining, but treaties can be renegotiated. As technology improves, as resources elsewhere become scarce, will the prohibition hold? Some commentators worry that future generations might look at Antarctica's resources the way we look at oil fields, as strategic prizes worth competing over. The ice, for now, protects itself simply by being difficult to exploit. But difficulty changes with technology. Fact 39. The treaty includes provisions for inspection. Any signatory nation can inspect another's facilities to ensure compliance with peaceful purposes. It's meant to maintain transparency. But Antarctica is vast, and inspections are expensive, logistically complex, and infrequent. The remoteness that makes secret facilities seem possible also makes verification challenging. How often are those isolated outposts really checked? What could be happening between inspections? These questions linger in the background of international discussions, unasked but present. Fact 40. Online narratives often reframe the Antarctic Treaty not as a conservation success, but as evidence of a global pact to hide the continent's true secrets from ordinary people. Why else, they ask, would all these competing nations suddenly agree to leave Antarctica alone? The treaty becomes, in these interpretations, not cooperation but conspiracy, nations united not in preservation but in concealment. It's a fundamentally different way of viewing the same document. One sees humanity's better nature, the other sees calculated deception. Antarctica remains, legally and physically, a unique space on our planet, neither owned nor free, neither military nor civilian, neither exploited nor entirely protected. It exists in a careful balance, watched by satellites and treaties alike. We drift now from politics to the deepest mystery of all. Change itself. Antarctica is changing. That much is certain. How fast, in which directions, with what consequences? These questions keep scientists arguing, keep models running, keep measurements flowing from ice cores and satellites and research stations scattered across the continent. Fact 41. Here's a puzzle. Some regions of Antarctica have warmed several times faster than the global average in recent decades. The Antarctic Peninsula, in particular, has seen dramatic temperature increases. Yet parts of East Antarctica have shown more complex trends. Some cooling, some warming only slightly, some fluctuating in ways that models struggle to capture. This regional variation fuels debate about what's driving change. Is it greenhouse gases, ocean currents, natural climate oscillations? The answer appears to be all of the above, interacting in ways we're still working to understand. Antarctica doesn't change uniformly. It changes in pieces at different rates for different reasons. Fact 42. Then there's the ice itself. Satellite records show that Antarctic sea ice has, at times, actually grown slightly even as the continent loses land ice overall. This nuance, expanding sea ice, shrinking land ice, is complex, but it's sometimes cherry-picked by those who want to argue climate change isn't happening or isn't serious. Look, they say, Antarctic ice is growing. Scientists respond with patience. Sea ice and land ice are different systems. Sea ice freezes from ocean water. Its growth or shrinkage doesn't affect sea level. Land ice sliding into the ocean and melting. That's what raises seas. But nuance is hard to communicate in a world that prefers simple narratives. Fact 43. The critical question is this: how much will Antarctica contribute to 21st century sea level rise? Estimates range from modest centimeters to catastrophic meters. The difference depends on how quickly major glaciers like Thwaites destabilize, whether ice shelves continue collapsing, how ocean warming penetrates beneath floating ice. Scientists argue intensely over these projections, not because they're politically motivated, but because the systems involved are genuinely difficult to model. Ice sheets don't change smoothly. They change with feedbacks, thresholds, sudden shifts. Fact 44. The collapse of the Larsen B ice shelf in 2002 shocked researchers. An ice shelf the size of Rhode Island disintegrated in weeks, fracturing into thousands of icebergs and essentially vanishing from the landscape. Scientists knew it was thinning. They didn't expect it to go so fast. The event raised a disturbing question. Do our models fully capture how quickly real-world ice can disintegrate? Are we underestimating the speed of change? We're watching in real time, adjusting our predictions as events unfold. Fact 45. This creates a communication challenge. Scientific language is cautious, full of uncertainties and ranges. Between 10 and 100 centimeters by 2100, depending on scenarios. Media coverage, by contrast, often gravitates toward dramatic framing, doomsday scenarios, catastrophic ice collapse. The mismatch between careful scientific communication and sensational headlines makes Antarctica both a genuine warning sign and a playground for exaggeration. How do we balance urgency with accuracy? How do we warn without terrifying, inform without numbing? Antarctica continues its transformation, indifferent to our difficulties in describing it. The ice melts and reforms, advances and retreats, participating in Earth's climate dance at scales both glacial and alarmingly rapid. Breathe deeply. Let these uncertainties settle without anxiety. We're nearly at the end of our journey. One more segment remains. We end where we began, with hidden life. Not the lakes we discussed at the start, but the organisms that live in them. Life at the very edge of what we thought possible. Fact 46. Beneath Antarctic ice shelves and within subglacial lakes, scientists have found bacteria and other microbes surviving in conditions that would seem to preclude life entirely. Darkness, perpetual, absolute. Cold, temperatures below freezing, kept liquid only by pressure and mineral salts. Isolation, cut off from Earth's surface for hundreds of thousands or millions of years. Yet life persists. These organisms don't need sunlight. They've never known sunlight. Their ancestors, perhaps, lived in an Antarctic sea before ice covered it. And when the ice came, they didn't die. They adapted. They found new ways to extract energy, from minerals dissolved in water, from chemical reactions between rock and liquid, from processes that have nothing to do with photosynthesis. Fact 47. These communities represent alternative strategies for existence. Life, we're learning, doesn't require a sun. It requires energy in some form, liquid water, and time. On icy moons like Europa and Enceladus, where underground oceans exist beneath kilometers of frozen crust, could similar communities thrive? Antarctica's subglacial ecosystems might be our closest natural analogs to alien biospheres. Or might they? That's where the debate continues. Fact 48. Some biologists argue these ecosystems demonstrate life's remarkable resilience and offer legitimate insights into extraterrestrial possibilities. Others caution against overhyping the connection. Europa's ocean exists in conditions fundamentally different from Lake Vostok's. The chemistry differs. The energy sources differ. The evolutionary pressures differ. Are Antarctic microbes truly analogs for alien life? Or are we seeing patterns where we want to see them? The question remains open. Fact 49. The discovery of these hidden ecosystems has reignited the ethical debate we touched on earlier. How aggressively should we sample them? Should we drill into every accessible subglacial lake, collect specimens, analyze everything we can? Or should we exercise restraint, sampling minimally, preserving these ancient ecosystems against our own contaminating influence? Teams debate these questions at conferences, in published papers, in quiet conversations over coffee at research stations. The potential scientific payoff is enormous, but so is the risk of destroying unique habitats that have remained undisturbed since the age of dinosaurs. Fact 50. And so we end with this image. Beneath kilometers of ice, in darkness that has never known light, in cold that would kill most organisms in seconds, life continues. Microbes cluster in thin films of water between ice and rock. They metabolize, they reproduce, they persist. And whether they represent solely Antarctic wonders or windows onto life's broader cosmic possibilities, they remind us that existence finds pathways we never imagined. The very fact that these micro-worlds exist, thriving under conditions we once thought uninhabitable, keeps alive both rigorous scientific curiosity and wilder fantasies of complex, undiscovered life lurking in Antarctica's depths. What else might hide beneath that ice? What else might we find if we keep looking, keep drilling, keep asking questions? Antarctica doesn't answer. It simply exists, layer upon layer of ice and time and mystery, holding its secrets with the patience of geological ages. And so, dear traveler, we return from the bottom of the world. We've journeyed through hidden lakes and collapsing glaciers, past pyramids that aren't pyramids and bases that may or may not have existed. We've seen blood-red waterfalls and lights in the polar sky. We've touched on politics and ethics, on climate change and the very definition of life itself. Antarctica remains what it has always been, a frontier of mystery, a place where science pushes its boundaries, a landscape where human imagination runs wild, sometimes toward truth, sometimes toward fantasy, often mingling both in ways difficult to separate. As you settle deeper now, as sleep begins to claim you, let these mysteries rest gently in your mind. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to choose between competing interpretations. Let them simply exist, like the ice itself, present, patient, holding within them more questions than answers. If tonight's journey brought you peace, please take a moment to like this video. And in the comments, let us know. Did these Antarctic mysteries help you drift towards sleep? Would you like us to explore other mysterious corners of our world in future bedtime stories? We're always listening for your suggestions. Thank you for spending this time with us here at GeoSnoozeFacts. Thank you for letting us guide you through Antarctica's frozen enigmas. Thank you for trusting us with your journey toward rest. May your dreams be filled with wonder. May you sleep deeply and wake refreshed. Good night.